Hi everyone, this is Hui Tongbai from Kulearn New Oriented Online Education Platform. So today we're going to talk about quadratic function. So quadratic function always come into three forms. The first one is called a standard form. So standard form would be something looks like y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So based on this form, we can know a lot of information based on that. So the first piece of information is that we can know the openness of the curve, because we know the quadratic function is a U-shaped curve. It would be something looking like this. And then we can know the openness of the curve. So if a is greater than 0, that means the U-shaped curve opens upward, and then there is a minimum point. And then if a is less than 0, is negative number, that means the U-shaped curve opens downward. That means there is a maximum point. Okay, so this is the first piece of information we know based on that. And then the second piece of information we know is the line of symmetry. Because the U-shaped curve is mirror image, the left side and right side are reflected with each other. So the line of symmetry would be x is equal to negative b over 2a. So this is a very important formula we have to keep in mind. And then number 3, we can know the vertex. Because as you can see, this is the vertex, and the vertex must be on the line of symmetry. So they share the same x-coordinate. So the x-coordinate for the vertex must be negative b over 2a. But you do not have to memorize the y-coordinate of the vertex, because the only thing you should do is to plug in negative b over 2a back into the original function, and then that is the y-coordinate. So we do not have to memorize that formula. Okay. So number 4, we can know the number of solutions. Solutions are also known as x-intercept, also known as zeros, roots. They all refer to the same thing. Okay. So I always ask my students, like, if a curve looks like this, how many solutions do you think it has? And students might say, oh, 2 solutions, right? Because there are 2 intersection points with the x-axis, right? So, and then if the curve looks like this, that means there's no solution, because there's no intersection point, right? And then if the curve looks like this, that means there's only one intersection point. There's only one solution, right? So how can we know the number of solutions in a very fast way? So we have to use a small triangle to represent that. We often call that discriminant. So discriminant would be b squared minus 4ac. So if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, that means there are 2 solutions. If b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, that means there's only one solution. If it is less than 0, that means there's no solution. Okay. So we often use the discriminant b squared minus 4ac to help us know how many solutions the quadratic function has. Okay. And then number 5, if the discriminant is greater than or equal to 0, that means there are solutions. So we can use a formula that is quadratic formula, that is that x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a to help us know the exact value of the solution. In number 6, we can know the y-intercept. Because y-intercept is the value of y when x is equal to 0. So when x is equal to 0, that means y is equal to c. So c is the y-intercept of the quadratic function. Okay? So these are all of the information we know based on the standard form. So any question for this part? If you do not have any question, let's talk about vertex form. So I'm going to erase all of the writing from the screen. So vertex form would be something looks like y is equal to a times x minus h squared plus k. And then we can still know the openness of the curve, because it's still a quadratic function. So if a is greater than 0, that means the U-shaped curve opens upward, and then there is a minimum point. And then if a is less than 0, that means it opens downward. There is a maximum point. Okay, so the same as the standard form. And the number 4, because it is called a vertex form, so we can directly know the vertex. So the vertex would be HK. And then number 3, we can know the line of symmetry. Because we know the vertex must be on the line of symmetry, right? So the line of symmetry must share the same x-coordinate with the vertex. So x is equal to h. So that is the line of symmetry. And then a lot of questions ask us you to convert quadratic function from standard form to vertex form. So we have to know how to do completing the square. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do completing the square. I'm going to give you an example. So for example, if we have y is equal to 2x squared minus 8x minus 7, so this is the quadratic function in standard form. And then if you want to convert it to the vertex form, the first thing we should do is to factor out the number, the coefficient before x squared. So that would be 2 times x squared minus 4x, and then minus 7. We do not have to factor out the constant number. And then we can have 2 times x squared minus 4x. So we have to plus a number and minus the same number so that we do not change the equation, and then minus 7. And then the number we should put here should based on the coefficient before x. So we should divide it by the number, divide the number by 2 first, and then that would be negative 2, and then square the number, that would be 4. So we plus 4 and minus 4, and then this is the part we want. So the next part is that 2 times bracket, and then x minus 2 squared, and then minus 4, and then minus 7. And then we have to open the bracket, so that would be 2 times x minus 2 squared minus 8 minus 7, and then the last step would be 2 times x minus 2 squared minus 15. So we can know the vertex would be 2, negative 15. Okay, so this is how we do completing the square, to convert a quadratic function from a standard form to a vertex form. So any question about this part? Alright, so the last part we are going to talk about is the factor form. Okay, so factor form would be something looks like y is equal to a times x minus c1 times x minus c2. Okay, and then we can, the first piece of information we know based on that is due the openness of the curve. So if a is greater than 0, that means it opens upward, there is a minimum point. And then if a is less than 0, that means it opens downward, there is a maximum point. And the number 2, we can know x-intercept directly, because x-intercept would be the value of x when y is equal to 0. So when y is equal to 0, that means the equation a times x minus c1 times x minus c2 is equal to 0, and then that means x1 is equal to c1, x2 is equal to c2. Sorry. x2 is equal to c2. Okay, so these are the two x-intercepts that we know based on the factor form. And then number 3, we can know the line of symmetry. Because if the curve looks like this is the C1, this is C2, and then the line of symmetry must be the mid value of C1 and C2. So the line of symmetry would be C1 plus C2 divided by 2. So that's how we know the mid value between two values. Okay. And then a lot of questions ask you to convert a quadratic function from standard form to factor form. So we have to know how to factorize. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this. So for example, if we have y is equal to 2x squared minus 7x plus 6. Alright, so I'm going to erase this part. And then, if you want to factorize this equation, the first thing we should do is to separate the 2x squared into 2 parts. And then we could separate that into 2x and x. And then for positive 6, it can be separated into many different pairs. For example, like 1, 6, 2, 3, negative 2, negative 3, negative 1, negative 6, a lot of different pairs, okay? So we have to find only one pair that can make the cross multiplication. So for example, we make 2x times like 6 plus x times 1, we have to make sure after cross multiplication, the number or the result should be negative 7x. Okay, and then finally we know only this group, these pairs work, right? And then we could erase all of the other pairs, and then we should combine them horizontally, okay? So that means the quadratic function can be written as 2x minus 3 times x minus 2, okay? So this is how we factorize a quadratic function, okay? So this is all key information we have to know about quadratic function, okay? So that's it for today. See you next time. Bye.